right, let's jump into the guest portion of the show. And what we do here on Inside Draft is we film, I've said it many times before, but we film a segment that we've been doing for several years where we'd bring a guest on, 5150 junior late model drivers. For the most part, we also have some pro drivers in. And so we do these interviews. And now we're expanding this show where we started with one of our mini stock drivers and workers at the racetrack last week, a couple weeks ago actually. And so we'll feature crew members, crew chiefs, people that work at the racetrack, just telling different people's stories, you know, why we're all in love with the sport and why we work so hard, and what makes the sport tick is the people that make it go round and round. So we want to tell their stories. So right now, let's see what Matt put in here for a little intro. It looks like we have something here. All right, let's watch this real quick, and then we'll bring our guest on, Kenna Mitchell. Looks like Matt put a clip in here. There's no audio in this.
Kenna Mitchell running third at the half here at the 5150 Junior Late Models. Kenna, what's going on with the car right now?
It's a little tight in the center.
You guys going to be able to get that fixed before we go back to these last 30 laps?
Pretty sure we can, yeah.
Well, we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
There you go, Kenna Mitchell.
Brian, nice and tidy about his business there, helping us out with a Race 1 interview. You see Kenna there in the second spot. She's run up first and second, both races. Really impressive with all the speed that she's displayed so far. All right, so just a quick clip right there of Kenna, and let's see if she is ready to go. Looks like she is. Welcome, Kenna. How are you doing?
You.
We appreciate your time and having you on with us tonight. You ready to talk a little bit of racing?
Yes.
Now, I understand. Let's start with this. I understand as soon as we're finished, we actually went a little bit early this evening because you're heading off racing just as soon as we're finished up here, right? Where are you heading?
Yep. We're heading up to Thunder Hill. We have a practice day we're doing tomorrow to just get better at the car. I'm running a BMW E30, and I have had a practice day there before, but we didn't get all the practice in we wanted. So we're going back up there tomorrow, and we have my first race next week.
How much road racing experience do you have?
I've been doing, since I started racing late models a couple years ago, yeah. I've been doing winter series in the Legends up at Las Vegas. There's the Silver State Road Course out there. And I also do karting during the weeks, yeah. And it's on road course in Prairie City.
So you do karting and legend car experience. I've seen, one of my opinions is some of the best drivers, pound for pound, those legend cars are like little F1 cars, a lot of horsepower, short wheelbase.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, so it seems like that's a really good combination. How much do you feel like that keeps you tuned up for your late model between the karting and the legend car?
I feel like it's definitely good conditioning for the longer races at Madeira. It's 40 laps, a little bit of a break, and then another 30 laps. So it's definitely a good conditioning being in those.
So how much seat time do you have on the bigger track with the bigger cars at Thunder Hill?
I think it's about, in the practice day we're doing, I don't know if it's sessions or not, but I'm pretty sure I don't remember how. Well, one of the guy we're running out there with, he said in a weekend he actually got, I think, 400 miles in
Wow.
one weekend. So it's definitely a lot to do running in those.
Yeah, really good experience. So tell me, how did you get involved in racing? Is it something that was in your family or something you were first interested in?
Yes, it's been, my grandpa actually was, he was a racer, and he started out, I think it was drag racing is what he started out doing, and my dad said that it was one of his neighbors that had a circle track car, and then he ended up getting a circle track car that he never let my dad race in because he said it was too dangerous. And then I think it was when I was 7 or 8, my dad started racing in the Lucas Oil Modifieds. And I always loved watching his races, and I wanted to race too. So I didn't have really an early start in racing. I started racing when I was 11 in the mini cups. And I never really had an experience for that. I did when I was 6, I did go-karts once, but that was about it for racing for me. So I started at 11, and went from mini cups to bandos, then up into late models, which is, well, what I've been racing the most now.
That's funny. You say you didn't really start early at 11. Now, in the old days where we had to have a driver's license at 16, I love hearing that. And I thought, heck, I didn't get to race till I was 19, and it makes me laugh, you saying that. So you've got a lot of experience. You come from a racing family, very similar to my family. My dad loved drag racing. The oval track stuff didn't make much sense to him. So it's interesting your grandpa came from that side of the fence as well, the drag racers. You started in how much time did you spend in the mini cups?
I think, well, for my first year, we only did mini cups for a year, but I did practice I did a couple practice days, and my first race, I don't remember when my first race was. I think it might have been out at Stockton, but my first race, oh man, I was probably the slowest car out there. I was really nervous because never been in a race car, but it was a lot of fun starting out when I started out. It's always been fun. So
are you really comfortable in the car right now? Because to me, from watching your evolution and your progress, you appear to be really comfortable in control of the car now. So do you feel that is that what we see, that you're just really comfortable in the car right now?
Yes, I feel really comfortable in the car because first started, no idea what I'm doing. Now I've spent a lot of seat time, been doing it for a while. Now I feel really comfortable in the car.
What are your goals for this year in 2022?
I would like to try to win some races in the juniors at, I'd like to try to win some races out at Madera. I think it'd be pretty cool to do, especially since I don't think there's been a girl who's won in the juniors yet, right? It's only been 2 seconds and third, I believe, is what.
Yeah, you're right. And your Kayla Eshelman's been second. Haley Deegan ran third a couple of times. Kersey Young was second. You've produced so much speed also this year. Even last year, there were times really, really fast, very consistent, as in that clip that we saw. Actually, I didn't show the clip from the first race or the highlights, but you've run up front first and second in both of them. So, so since you mentioned it, yeah, there's not been a young lady that has won in the 5150 Junior Late Model Series on MAV TV. So what would that mean to you if you were able to be the first young lady that won in that series on MAV TV?
It means a lot to me because it just shows how far we've come since we've started, and all the practice we've put in, the struggles we've had with the car, and trying to find that speed that we need.
Are you, once you get in the race car, I get a lot of these questions from different people. In fact, I was up at Sonoma yesterday and chatting with an individual about our TV show and our kids. When you're in the race car, you've just pretty much grown up around racing, it seems like. So I get a lot of questions about the young ladies. When are the girls going to win? What's the advantage? What's the disadvantage? To me, it's always when a driver puts the helmet on, it's all the same. So in your experience, maybe you can give me some feedback because people focus on this so much. Does it feel like, do you ever even think about being a girl, or are you just a race car driver when you put that helmet on?
Just race car driver and put the helmet on.
How about interacting and working with the team? How much knowledge do you have of the race car, and how much have you learned about setting up the race car?
In mini cups and bandos, I didn't have a lot about the car because it was just me and my crew chief that really worked on it, because my dad was the big races. And now that I've moved up to the late models, I've started learning more about the car. At first, I wasn't really working on it a bunch, and now I'm starting to learn a lot more about what changing certain things does, how helps tighten it up, how it helps loosen the car, and things like that.
What is your biggest challenge in racing right now?
I'd say giving feedback would be my biggest challenge, because sometimes, the first race, I didn't realize, but I was giving the opposite of the problem I had, and ended up messing us up through the race with it being tight the whole race. We couldn't quite figure it out till we're like, oh, at the break, this is what we need to do. And so I've been working on getting better at giving feedback to hopefully help us get that win we want.
Who are the key individuals that help you with your setup, driver coaching, Give me a little vision of what those relationships are like and who they are. Who helps you so much with that race car?
Last year we had Matt Eshelman who was helping us, and he helped a lot with me understanding what to focus on, how to slow things down, and realize, oh, this is what's going on. This is how I explain this. And I'd say the biggest person on my team is my crew chief George. I've been working with him my whole racing career since I started in mini cups, and he's a great spotter. And I really like how he's like, okay, so what's wrong with the car? Let's break this down, and things like that.
Yeah, and chemistry is really important. I think people from other sports that aren't familiar with racing would be rather surprised on. It's very much like different baseball teams. I'd played on Matt. You mentioned Matt Eshelman, really good baseball player, and so Matt uses a lot of analogies from baseball towards racing. So people would be surprised on how important chemistry is, and a crew chief is like a coach. And putting all the parts and pieces together, and to me, chemistry is really important. And when you have team members you trust, especially with a spotter, as you noted, so he's been with you from all the way at the beginning, from the mini cups.
Yep.
So you absolutely trust him when he's spotting for you.
Yes, I do.
Okay, speaking of spotting, how different was it to deal with the radios? With the 5150 Junior Late Model Series, a lot of people may not know, but we operate with the radios just like ARCA. So when you go up to ARCA West, ARCA National, trucks, and on up the ladders, this is designed to train all of you young drivers. So how unique and how different is it to use the radios for you?
I think it's really helpful having radios and having someone to in the race call you clear, or say try running this line, or just having someone to talk to you while you're out there, not just trying to figure it out by yourself. Because I have a friend who, she didn't run radios at first, but then her dad started spotting, and it helped her a lot, because it's then you have someone who has an outsider's perspective of what's going on. So it's when I'm in the car, I can't always tell if I'm clear, how far back someone is. So then having someone to call, be like, okay, you're clear behind you, you can go up the line, you can get down, try to pass them here, and things like how just outside perspective is what I think.
Okay, tell the fans how old you are and what is your hometown.
I'm 16 and I'm from Loomis.
Okay. What are your long-term goals in racing?
I definitely want to keep moving up and see how far I can I can go in racing. NASCAR would be pretty cool to get to.
Mm-hmm. So NASCAR would be a good goal. You mentioned you're spending some time road racing. So is that in preparation for other types of road racing, or would that be in preparation for possibly some ARCA West races, maybe at Sonoma?
I think it might be, for now, it's a lot of learning better car control and getting conditioning in, as I said about the karting. Because it's definitely helpful for in the Legends, they're really squirrely when they're going fast. I think the fastest we've gone was about 115 on the back stretch on the road course. And so just having all that control, getting to learn the cars in those, it kind of translates over to late models. When you get little sideways, able to save it, because you're okay, so this is what I need to do to save it.
Yeah, and when you're going that fast, things change in a hurry.
Yep.
For a lot in the late model, you mentioned with when we first went to Phoenix, for example, and you're out there running 140, 150 miles an hour when you're used to running 110, things change in a hurry. You get a little bit sideways and you're covering football fields, and then same thing happens when you go to Vegas, the big track, and way, way up there in speed. So that's where I've always thought, as I mentioned earlier, the Legend cars are so impressive to me because of that short wheelbase coupled with the horsepower, and they're just a handful. I mean, they really train some good drivers. So what would be your goals ultimately? So NASCAR all the way to Cup, winning races, maybe the first young lady that wins in Cup. What do you think of that?
I think that'd be pretty cool to be able to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about Haley Deegan and what she's done from the 5150 junior start and then where she's at in the sport right now with the big following she has?
I don't really watch a lot of racing, but I did meet her at one race that was at our home track. When I first started mini cups, which was pretty cool. And I don't watch a lot of racing, so I've seen a couple of the things with her though.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So if there was one thing that you could change in racing, I'm always, and I ask this because of your age, and I'm really interested in the youth. If there was one thing that you could change in racing or about racing, what would that be?
I don't think I'd change really anything in racing.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure what I would change if I could.
Okay. Interesting. I kind of asked that because Haley kind of lit the internet up this last week talking about the races and Cup being shorter, and it would keep the attention span of more people, and it would make it more exciting. So I'm just always interested in the perspective of the youngsters. Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about school. Tell me about your education. Tell me about school. You're 16 years old. Tell the fans what grade you're in and what school's like.
I'm a sophomore, and since the lockdown a couple of years ago, I started doing online school, and we found it's really helpful for racing because it gives me a lot more time to like catch up on homework and things like that, rather than trying to get ahead in normal high school. So being online is definitely helpful for racing to me.
What is your favorite subject in school?
My favorite subject is a creative writing class I took in food nutrition.
Okay. How about your least favorite subject?
Definitely biology and earth science. Like there's a couple things that were interesting to me, but I just struggled a little in those classes.
Okay, you mentioned creative writing. Have you worked very much with sponsors and working on proposals yet?
Yes, I have done a couple with, like, me and my parents have worked on them sometimes.
Mm-hmm. So that might come in handy. I always tell youngsters, make sure, reading, writing, math, figuring out how to balance the books on your racing, and then English, super important, writing, super important to going out and finding that money we need for the race cars. Tell the fans, what's your favorite color?
Favorite color is lavender.
Favorite color?
Light shade of purple.
Have you ever had a lavender race car?
I have not.
Yet?
Maybe not yet, yeah.
What's your least favorite color?
I'm not sure I really have a least favorite color.
Okay. How about your favorite food all time? You talked about nutrition. Do you eat really healthy, and what is your favorite food?
I try to eat healthy, but my favorite is mashed potatoes and gravy.
Okay. How about your least favorite food?
Definitely baby tomatoes.
Okay. What is your favorite hobby other than racing?
I like writing. Like I have a book I'm working on that I've been working on for a couple of years, so I definitely like writing, just having the freedom to make a story.
Okay, so you like writing, creative writing. That's really interesting. Tell us about the book. You said you're writing a book yourself right now, so tell us about that.
Yeah, I've been working on it for a couple of years, and it's kind of just like a post-apocalypse based book that I got it from. It was this random dream I had, and I was like, you know what, this is a cool idea. I'm gonna work on this. So I've been working on it for a couple of years. I haven't been updating it because busy with racing.
Mm-hmm. So you might be a Hollywood writer somewhere down the road, maybe New Days of Thunder writer, something along those lines. Okay, on the hobby side, is racing? Would you consider racing your biggest physical hobby? Is that what you think about the most? Is with your racing?
Yes, it's definitely be the biggest hobby that I'd have.
Okay, your dad races. You mentioned that. Tell me a little bit about your dad's racing. Maybe starting from the beginning. You mentioned, pardon the interruption, but you mentioned Lucas Modifieds. So was there a lot of traveling there? And then tell me about your dad's racing and how it's evolved to what he's doing right now.
He told me he started about 16 working on his dad's car, and that he never got to drive because his dad thought it was too dangerous. Mm-hmm. And then I don't remember what year it was that he started racing in the modifieds, but I remember going to a couple of his races, like Salt Lake City out in the Kern Raceway. Mm-hmm. And it was definitely cool to watch those races because it's like the open wheel car. There was some race he had where I think it was one race started raining in the middle of it. I think that was at Kern. And it's pretty cool to watch those races just because it's such a different sport than all the ones that I did, like when I did soccer and I did wrestling. So it was really cool to watch the racing because it was like so foreign to me. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so your dad, and what I see with a lot of the young drivers is the parents really sacrifice a lot, to choose to do so much for the junior late model drivers. And I've always thought, as a race car driver myself, that must be really difficult. And it looks like your dad, there's a lot of times where he could be in the car racing and he's dedicated the time to support your racing. What does that mean to you?
It means a lot to me to have him do that, because I know there's a lot of weekends where we're out at a track and it's like he could be do he'd be doing all these other things, but he's out supporting me at the racetrack. Like we have, like in the Legends, most of the weekends it's just me and him out at Vegas racing at that road course up there.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about the rest of your family, siblings, the entire family. Tell me about them.
I have a younger sister. Her name's Taylor, and she actually did race for, I think it might have been half a year, it might have been a full year in the Bandos with me when I raced that, and we did road course together too. But now she's doing softball, and we've been going to her games. And a couple weekends, a lot of the weekends when it's just me and my dad, my mom's out with her at her softball games.
So would it have been easier if she would have kept racing, do you think? Or is it easier that she's not racing?
I think it would, for her, I think she definitely likes like the slower sports better, because racing would definitely be a lot for her. She's like she and my mom are, I'd say, what was I think for
Well, with sports too, tell me, it seems like, and same thing, a lot of people I mentioned before, people would be surprised about how a sports team functions and how camaraderie and how important that is for our racing. The other thing that I think people would be really surprised if they got in the race car is how physical it is. So you talked about your, the karting and the Legends and keeping yourself in shape, and same thing going out to Thunder Hill and driving there. How much, when you were in sports, or even how much do you work out today besides being in the car to keep yourself in physical shape? Because to me, it is probably the most understated thing. You go out and run a long race, how fatiguing it is, how hot it is in the car, and physically how demanding it is. So how do you keep yourself in shape?
I've been working since I got my license. I've been working on trying to go to the gym more, because I do a weight training on Wednesdays that definitely helps with like the heaviness of the car, and like because the BMWs that I'm running, they don't have power steering like I've had in the Legends, the late models. So it's like having that weight, like being able to handle that weight, is definitely helpful. So even if it's not in the car training, I definitely want to try to go to the gym more and get better at the conditioning.
Do you feel like 70 lapper at Madeira in the junior late models, by design, that's a longer race, it's very demanding. Do you feel different from the beginning to the end physically? Does it fatigue you towards the latter part of those races?
I think from when I first started in the Madeira juniors, when I first started, I felt a lot more fatigued after races. But now I feel like a little fatigued, but I bounce back pretty fast. Most of the time it's just getting really thirsty in the middle of the race when it's been green for 30 laps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the physical side of it, even with both young men and women, it's really physically demanding, and the more fit you can be, the more mentally aware you are, where you don't fall off, and your concentration as well. I know we've got probably more important, we work with a lot of 11, 12, 13-year-olds, the real youngsters, and so really important for them to be in really good shape as well. The event, tell me a little bit about, so you've mentioned going to Thunder Hill. Are those actual organized races, or are those just tests, or do you actually end up in a race with those cars as well?
Next week we will be having an organized race out there. It's an organized race out there. I don't remember exactly what they have the schedule as, but I know it's a long weekend.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I know I'm jumping around a little bit here. I'm trying to cover all the bases for Matt, and for those of you watching what we're doing, our lead editor here, Matt, will end up editing a piece of this. It'll be about 2 minutes long. It'll end up on MAV TV and a halftime feature on Kenna in one of our 5150 Junior Late Model events, so I'm trying to make sure I cover all the bases here. Back to school. Something we're always interested in. What do you see after high school for your education?
I think I'd want to try to do architecture, because I like building and designing things a lot. So if racing didn't work out as much as I'd want it to, I'd want to get into architecture.
And architecture, that's really interesting. So big buildings and designing big like skyscraper type buildings, homes, or what interest do you have
I'm
there?
not sure. I like designing a lot of different things. I have a couple of like games I've built a lot on because I'm like, oh, it's so cool being able to like change these things and like envision it and then bring it to life in them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not quite sure exactly what I do.
Okay. We've got coming up here shortly, early June. I mentioned earlier we're going to the Motorsports Hall of Fame event. It's the West Coast Motorsports Hall of Fame induction ceremony and dinner. We're taking 4 of our juniors. You're in the 5th position in points. You've run up front. There's a combination of, there's a few other things, test, as I mentioned, a few other things that there's some scoring factors that come into it, but the top 4 in the points will be really important. It's really from Jesse Love to Austin Herzog to so many of the kids we've taken up, Bradley Erickson last year, and they're able to do a lot of meet and greet with different car owners, different personalities from the sport. What would that mean to you to go up there to be able to make that top 4 of the kids and go up and interact and meet some of the Cup folks at Sonoma this year in June?
I think it'd be pretty cool to do. I know we're right there in the points. And as you mentioned about the book, I know I have to read it a couple times. I'm not always the greatest at remembering things.
Yeah, and I'm real big. The reason I put that in there is I'm real big on the history, and you kids are going to be the ones carrying the sport forward. Mm-hmm. And we need the kids to understand the history and where the sport came from. So that's why we've fused some of that in. All right, let's jump back to the points. So you're 5th in the points. You've been a 1-2 car. You've been right up in the front of both of these races. Do you think it's a position where or do you think you could put yourself in a position to win this championship?
I think it'd be possible because we've had a couple troubles in the races and have to try to drive back up from the back. But I definitely think it's still possible with, I think it's 7 more races to go to the end of the year.
Yeah, seven more. There's 9 total. You really haven't. Would you finish 6th? You came all the way back to 6th last round 2, right?
Yes, I finished 7th in the first one and then 6th in the second one.
Okay, so after running up front, 1-2, right in the front. So you haven't. The biggest thing we've seen, and this has happened multiple times. Jacob Smith, a good example last year. Jacob led the points most of the year, lost the championship to Brody Armtrout. But Jacob had 2 terrible nights. Night number 1, he finished way, way back. And so it's limiting the damage on your really bad nights that win championships. So if you're able to contain it where a 6th or 7th is your bad night, you've got a really, really good chance, especially with the speed in the car that you guys have right now. So you think you can put yourself in contention for the championship? I would certainly think so. You're fast enough to win if you can put the whole race together. Where do you think you need to improve as a team? Now, you'd already mentioned some things, giving feedback. Do you feel like the cars are really fast? Is there any more speed right there, or the cars are fast enough to win? Is there any improvement for the team that you can see?
I think figuring out like having me watch the changes they make and doing, okay, so this is what this affects, and like moving this will change this for the car. Because like there's some terms they've like told me about, I'm like, oh, so that makes sense. That's what they're changing. Now I understand. And like as I said, feedback has really like been a problem for me. Like this year we've been battling a tight car. Like on the first race, I think in the first start it was that I got someone underneath me because I messed up my first corner. I was like, oh, right, tire pressures are low, and I'm going high now.
Okay, so that would explain even the start of the race, just round 2. You went in and you ended up going across the track a little bit. They got underneath you, but then as the tire pressures came up, or just you're pretty tough on the top, actually. You don't give up there, and I see a lot more fight in you. You'll really race hard top or bottom. So that kind of explains that start, low pressures down, and you're working on your feedback. So you think there's a lot of room for you to improve even as we go through the season then?
Yeah, I definitely think there's some more improvement I can do. I think if I can get the feedback down, it would definitely help us get fast.
Okay, tell me about your sponsors and who helps you on the race car.
My sponsors are, our newest sponsor is Bearco Redwood, and then Turn 14, Tilly Claps, Sinister Diesel, Centaur Trucks, and Americoat Powder Coating.
Okay, if you could have any sponsor you want, you're on the front row at Daytona 5-6 years from now. Who would your sponsor be if you could just, any sponsor you wanted on that car, who would it be?
I'd say probably In and Out if we could, because it's we usually eat there after every race, which is pretty funny to us because we're always like we always end up here, no matter the
That's
track we go to.
Yeah, that's a really cool choice. In and Out, drag racing family, as you probably
Yeah,
know, they're
we saw
big
that. We
into
were like,
drag racing. Yeah.
yeah, we saw it. We're like, oh, that's cool. We didn't know that.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that they've not sponsored an oval track car yet. So maybe it's going to take a California girl like you that can go win races and put In and Out on the car. I've heard some stories that they were even looking at Florida and moving back east. So who knows? Maybe timing might be just right for you there. So In and Out would be on your race car. Can you see yourself down the road racing Daytona, Talladega, kind of all the big NASCAR circuit? Do you envision yourself doing that?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it'd definitely it'd be a ways to go, but I think I could get there.
Well, I think the most important thing is for the kids to, and I try and teach this all the time, really envision that you're there. If that's your dream, chase it. Follow your dreams with all of your heart. Now, certainly educate yourself at the highest level, have backup plans as you have, and do everything you possibly can and chase your dreams. And, it happens for some people. It might as well happen to you. And that's what the 5150 Junior Late Model Series is all about, is giving you guys a head start, guys and gals, a big head start. Speaking of 5150 Junior Late Model Series, what does that mean? You guys are able to race on television at a very young age with a huge audience across the country. Do you get feedback on that? What's that mean to you?
It definitely means a lot to be able to be on like such a big series, and or it definitely means a lot to be on in the series because it's like you get out there and show people what you can do.
Yep, and it's for the sport, like I've said, it's the sport's in your hands, all of you kids next. So I'm going to grab a couple of questions real quick or look at the message boards. Let me jump over here. Let's see here. Oh, we've got a lot of friends saying hi. If anyone has a question, go ahead and pop it in there. John Williams, Dan Myrick. Dan's going to be out Saturday. Rick Lee. Hello, Rick from Idaho. All these people. Got a friend from Iowa in here. Paul Gomez. Boy, Paul's a racing friend from way back. And then Jim Dale saying hi as well. All right. I'm just making sure if anyone's got a question for Kenna, pop it in there real quick, because we are very close to having to let her go. She's on a timeline heading up to the racetrack. So you'd mentioned, I want to go back to school real quick. And we've heard this a lot with a lot of the kids during COVID. How difficult has school been for you since COVID, or how much did it change things for you?
It's definitely changed a lot from when I went to, because for my first 8 years or 9 years of school, I was at a public school. So going on to online, it was definitely different for me, but I like it better because I feel like I'm better at independent work than I ever was in group work and like public speaking in front of the class. I get nervous a lot when I speak in front of people.
You actually won't down the road. You'll be very good at it. You watch what happens. I was the shyest kid in high school, junior. I think it was junior. We had a speech class, and that was the worst thing. Getting up in front of the classroom, I hated that. It was absolutely the worst. And then somehow I flipped a switch and went the other way, and it was just the fun thing. So it'll change for you. It'll be you'll be very comfortable with it. Shelly Smith, how long has she been racing? So it looks like Shelly just jumped in a little bit. Someone said they want to know how old you were, 16. So why don't you tell Shelly again about your racing, how long you've been racing, and then from the beginning, your very first cars all the way up to what you're driving right now.
I've been racing, I think this is my 6th year in racing, and I've been racing since I was 11. I first started out in mini cups for about a year and moved up into bandos, which wasn't as big as a jump as it was from bandos up into late models. We started racing juniors. My first race in juniors was at Madeira, and like what's funny is my dad always says that I always say I don't want to drive this car. I like my cars. I don't want to get into a new thing.
Tell me about your very first race, the very, very first time that you sat in a car, you're at the racetrack, you grab that steering wheel, you go out on the track. What was the experience like?
it was such a like surreal experience to me because I've been watching my dad race for so many years, and then getting into the car and getting out there, I was like, is this really happening? Am I actually on the track right now? And I remember being there with my grandpa, and I remember my first race suit was like some two-piece suit we found, and it was such a like cool experience to me because it was like it's like I'm on track racing with other people, and it's like getting to what the dream I wanted.
See, to me, about the favorite thing to hear from anyone is that very first experience. It's funny, you talked about, I didn't get to race till I was 11. Well, I didn't get to race until I was 19, but I had built a car when I was 14, preparing for when I turned 16. Another car when I was 17. I blew up the street engine in my car. Long story, but anyway, had to sell it. And I finally got to race when I was 19, so I had dreamt about it so much. And I remember going out that pit gate, going onto the racetrack, and first of all, you're thinking, holy cow, I can't believe I'm actually finally doing this. And then you feel like you're doing about 6,000 miles an hour, and you realize you weren't. And then the pieces start coming together, and you become a fast race car driver. So I always love hearing those stories. Rick Lee, a friend of ours from Idaho, Rick says, let's see what he said. Go get that first win for the girls. Shelly Smith, love watching these kids improve with every race. Let's see, Edward Cortez, at what age did you realize you wanted to race? So at what age did you realize you wanted to race?
I think I don't remember exactly what year it was, but I remember it might have been my last year of soccer. I was like, I want to do something that's like more like I felt like I want to do something that's more like solo. But then getting into racing, it's like having the spotter, being able to talk to just that one person. So it's like you, your spotter, and the car out on track. So I remember what the first year I wanted to race was.
Pretty young,
or how old it was exactly. Yeah, I think maybe it was like 8 or 9, I think.
Okay. Well, and it is definitely more individual. So there's a trait there because you talk about your education and with racing. So the thing about racing, and you tell me, is this tough for you? There's no hiding when we're out there. It's us, and everyone's watching, and every mistake, everything you do is under the microscope, especially in the 5150 Junior Late Model Series with 16, 17 cameras and the nation watching. Is that difficult for you? In soccer, other people can pick up the slack. When you're out there in a race car, you're pretty much, there's no hiding from it. Is that difficult, or do you like that?
I like it because it's like being able to like go back and look at like the mistakes I made, where I can improve, and watching other people race and picking up on things that they do. It's like, okay, so this is the line I want to run at this track. This is how we can run, and like seeing like how other people improve too, to help us improve.
Okay, Jim Dale has a question for you. Do you feel any more pressure racing as a female?
I don't really think so.
Yeah, and my take on that too, Jim, from all of our years, Haley Deegan being in the first year, 7 years into the junior 5150 Junior Late Model Series, and we're 8 years into the TV show. All of the young ladies I've been around and in the show, and there's been a lot of young ladies come through the program. It's amazing to me because after a short period of time, you just forget they're females, and they're just race car drivers, and especially probably because we deal with so many kids. To me, they're all the same, and so I don't really feel there's any pressure that way. Will it be a really big deal, the first victory on MAV TV by a young female? Yeah, I think it's going to be a really big deal, not because of us, but just the way the press works. I think it'll take off pretty big. So it's good you don't feel that pressure. Is there anything else, Kenna, that you would like to add? I know we've only got a couple of minutes, and we need to get you out of here so you can get on the road. Anything else that you would like to add tonight?
I'm not. I don't think I have anything else I want to add.
Okay, covered all the bases. So you're going to still be friendly when you're famous, and we come see you in Daytona. You'll smile and say hi to all of us and remember us, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, have fun. Be safe up there at Thunder Hill. I'm kind of jealous. I like that road racing stuff. A lot of fun. So have fun. Like I said, be safe, and we can't wait to see you at the end of the month at round 3 of the 5150 Junior Late Model Series. Any predictions for round 3 from you?
Hoping we'll get a podium in that one.
Podium. podium. That's a good goal, and you never know what happens when you're just find that white flag in good condition, nice and stable with that car really fast. In the juniors, I always talk about that, how important, especially in the first half of the season, the juniors, a lot of the kids are trying to figure out where the fenders are. So if you can get your car to that white flag in good condition without the car towed in or towed out, without fenders knocked around, there's a good chance you might be really surprised what happens. Now, the junior series, traditionally, when we get to about July, it becomes really tough because that top 4 or 5 of you kids has separated from the rest, and it's really tough to run up there. So congratulations on being one of the fastest kids. It's always exciting when part of the 5150 junior class graduates and to see the next group of you kids come up. So it's really exciting to watch. Thank you, everyone. I'm watching over here. My eyes are on both sides. Thank you on both sides for all the comments. Appreciate it very much. Thank you very much, Kenna, for your time tonight. Good luck this weekend. Can't wait to see you back at the Madera Speedway in just a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
All right. We'll let Kenna go. Good luck. And, again, we appreciate her time very much. Let's let her move out of here. See, I'm without Matt, my helper here, so we're going to cover a little bit of time here, cover a little bit of news coming up that's really important. Let me pull this down. All right. So, again, we appreciate Kenna's time. One thing I want to cover right now that I think is pretty important. I've never done this before. I want to chat about it a little bit. I've only done it in banquet-type settings. I'll go back if you guys have got questions or comments. Make sure, and I like reading the comments. Funny. So leave your comments here, and I'll grab them right at the end of the show. We got a couple minutes here. So what I'm going to announce right now, I've never done a marketing seminar, a sponsorship class just out to the public like this, just pushing the content out anywhere and everywhere that we can to help racers all over the country. I mentioned Carol Hoover, a friend of mine from the Midwest that's really passionate about hobby stock and modified dirt racing, Oskaloosa, Bloomfield, all those tracks back there. So maybe it benefits some folks back there, our folks out here. I've always, at the beginning of each season, we do a sponsorship seminar for our racers. Starting with COVID, we were unable to do that. So we have been working really hard here, and starting the first week in May for 4 consecutive weeks, I'm going to host a how to get a sponsorship, how to sell motorsports marketing seminar. So what we traditionally do at the Madera Speedway, or actually at the Hampton Inn at the banquet room, for a couple of different classes of 40 people, we're going to put it on our Short Track TV channel and push it everywhere we possibly can for people to enjoy. So if you know anybody that needs a sponsor for the race car, wants a sponsor for the race car, I'm going to teach you everything I know about it. I've got some guests that will come on the show with us during the 4 weeks. The first 2 weeks will be me teaching all of you just how I sell sponsorship and the different procedures and techniques and how I build relationships and what has worked for me over the years. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but I'm going to teach everyone what's worked for me. I think everyone will get a lot from it, and then I'll have a couple of special guests come on with us. So spread the word on that. Look for some news there. We've got about 3 minutes left here. Want to hit the comments. Let's go up here. Dan Myrick, I need help in that area. Well, I'll show you some different things, and I think you'll think about motorsports sponsorship a lot differently after you've gone through the seminar. I'm going to leave it up on YouTube for the whole side of things. That's kind of one of the themes. It's not, I'll teach you some techniques on how to get major brands' attention, but sponsorship's not charity. All right, let's go back through the comments real quick before I sign off here. Jim Dale, thank you for watching. David Munoz, thank you for watching. Shelley, George Stayoni, good to hear from George. Long-time racing friend. Let's see, who'd we miss here? Dan Myrick will be out this weekend. Dan Myrick, for all of you mini stock drivers, Dan put up $2,500. $2,500 for a 9-race series plus the Olga's California Dream 100. That's $250 per night for the top 3. So we broke that up. I believe it was 125, 75, and 50, I think is what Dan and I came up with. So the top 3 mini stock drivers in each race are racing for some pretty good money, thanks to Dan. We appreciate his passion for the the grassroots side of racing and the mini stocks. He's single-handedly going to revive that, it looks like. Judy, thank you, Judy. One of my racing and flying friends. We share a love of airplanes and race cars. Dave Anstead, Shelly Smith, all you guys. So thank you very much. Time to get out of here. I've got 1 minute. We've got a lot of equipment to pack down. We're heading to the racetrack. And again, looking at the forecast, as everyone knows, I watch very closely. The forecast I see is for racing Saturday night. Legends of Kearney Bowl will be out with all of our club racers. We're going to get some rain in the morning. Part of what we're doing down there tomorrow is getting all the water pumps ready. We're crazy enough to do this. We love racing. So we'll fight that rain off after the morning, and I see in the forecast racing, big motorsports in the afternoon. So thank all of you guys for joining us tonight. It's kind of fun just to get together. We used to do this behind the scenes without anyone seeing, so we thought, why not let you see the personalities of all these kids, drivers, and we're adding the behind-the-scenes crew chiefs, mechanics, and track officials this year, just telling everybody's story. So we get to know each other and why we're crazy enough to do this racing stuff. All right, I appreciate everyone joining us. We'll see you at the Madera Speedway for club race round number 2 this Saturday. Madera Speedway qualifying 4 o'clock. Main events will be at 5:30. 5:30, it changed a little bit. So qualifying 4 o'clock, main events 5:30. Practice tomorrow night from 5 to 8 with pits open at 3 p.m. tomorrow. So again, thank you guys very much for joining us. We'll catch you next week right here on our little talk show, The Inside Draft.